Based on a true story in 1939, Poland was conquered by two major powers. Germany occupied the West, and the Soviet Union took the East. During this turmoil, a young officer named Janusz was arrested by Soviet soldiers and falsely accused of spying. The charge was a setup to throw him in prison. When he refused to sign the interrogation report, they pressured his wife to give false testimony. His fight for freedom was just beginning. This is the way back. Months later, Janusz was sent to a gulag deep in Siberia. The prison sat far from any settlement. The chief warned inmates there were no walls or electric fences. Escape meant death from the brutal weather or the wild terrain. Even if someone reached a village, locals might kill them for the government reward. Food was scarce. Many prisoners suffered night blindness from malnutrition. A single piece of bread was precious. Despite the risk, Janusz still shared his food, drawing criticism from another inmate who thought he was too trusting. On his first night, Janusz met Khabarov, a fellow prisoner held for vague reasons. The Soviets used the camp for forced labor. Khabarov explained that many inmates were hardened criminals, easy to spot by their heavy tattoos. Avoiding conflict with them was a matter of survival.
Возьми пальто.
Бабушка вязала, что ли?
The next morning, prisoners were forced to cut wood in the forest. Janusz looked toward the hilltop and wondered what lay beyond. Thoughts of escape began to grow. That night, the inmates relaxed in the barracks. Some repaired shoes, others drew or told stories. Janusz worked to remove lice from his scarf until Khabarov showed him a trick, burying the scarf in snow to kill the pests. Later, outside in the cold, Khabarov shared a secret. He had found a possible escape route. Janusz listened closely but questioned where they could go. The surrounding territory was enemy-controlled. Khabarov said their only chance was to cross into Mongolia. The journey was nearly 1,000 miles, with Lake Baikal as a key resting point. To travel that far, they needed supplies. They planned to barter for food and gear. Janusz agreed and considered inviting a few trusted inmates. Khabarov began trading quietly, collecting bread and other essentials one piece at a time. Time passed, and one morning a sudden blizzard struck as the prisoners prepared to cut trees. Many froze to death. Instead of returning to camp, the guards ordered everyone to lie down on the snow. Smith, a fellow prisoner, opposed the order. He insisted they head into the forest to find shelter. At first, the guards threatened to shoot him for disobedience, but he refused to give in. Facing certain death in the open, they followed his advice. Inside the forest, Janusz quickly built a shelter from tree branches. There he met several people who would later join his escape. They survived the storm, but Smith and others were soon assigned to heavier labor in the mines. The work was dangerous and exhausting. Cave-ins and poisonous gases killed many. The lack of oxygen caused Janusz to hallucinate until Smith pulled him back to awareness. In a half-dazed state, Janusz spoke of his escape plan. Smith warned it was impossible and cautioned him not to trust Khabarov, who had a reputation for lying to new inmates. Still, Smith added that if Janusz found a real way out, he would join, since the mine work would eventually kill them. Another storm hit weeks later. Janusz told Khabarov they had to escape that night. The blizzard would hide their tracks. He felt confident they could hunt for food during the journey. But Smith's doubts proved correct. Khabarov admitted he had never planned a serious escape. He agreed only to introduce them to someone who knew a secret route out of the camp. Before leaving, Janusz's group gathered provisions through bartering. At the last moment, one member grew sick from malnutrition and lost almost all night vision. Their plan was then discovered by a brutal inmate named Falka, who unexpectedly wanted to join. He claimed his life was at risk because of gambling debts. Janusz allowed it as long as Falka brought his own supplies. When the prison generator began to fail, they made their move. Guards released tracking dogs, but the storm erased the scent. Escaping the camp proved easier than expected, yet surviving the forest was far harder. Fierce winds cut visibility, and the cold threatened to freeze their lungs. Janusz fashioned a simple mask from tree bark to keep breathing in the icy air. After roughly 30 miles of hard travel, the group stopped to rest. The Mongolian border was still about 1,000 miles away, so their journey had barely begun. Janusz told everyone to combine their supplies. No one could keep food for themselves. They followed his lead because he was the only one with navigation skills. His military experience in forest terrain gave him the best chance of keeping them alive. Falka, impressed by Janusz's sense of direction, offered to act as his bodyguard. If Janusz died, they would all lose their guide. Their supplies would last only a week. After that, they would have to rely on what they found in the wild. In the cold climate, small fish were their most realistic food source. That afternoon the group searched the forest for dry wood. During the effort Kazik, whose poor eyesight worsened at night, became lost. Janusz and the others split up to search, but darkness and dense trees made it impossible to find him. As the temperature dropped, Kazik began to hallucinate, imagining someone leading him back to camp. The fire was close, but he sat down from exhaustion and never woke again. His death shook the group. Falca broke the silence with a grim remark that at least the fish no longer had to be divided 7 ways. 2 weeks of walking brought them out of the snowy forest, but starvation set in. Falca even said that if someone died he would eat the body. The next day, while resting, they heard strange noises. Following the sound, they found wolves feeding on a deer. Driven by hunger, they drove the wolves away and ate the carcass without hesitation. The following morning Janusz set out alone for Lake Baikal, knowing his companions were too weak to travel. After 3 days he reached the lake and another 3 brought him back. His effort kept the group alive and Smith saw in him a true leader. Days later, as the group finally approached the lake together, they noticed someone following them. Smith feared a local might report them, so Janusz signaled for everyone to stay close. The stranger turned out to be a woman. She said she was from Poland, fleeing the Soviet army like Janusz and several others. Janusz considered letting her join, but Smith and Falca opposed the idea, worried she would slow them down. Even after they turned her away, she kept a quiet distance behind the group. During the next day's march a stroke of luck arrived. They found a deer trapped in mud and secured enough meat for a full meal. With food finally abundant, one of the men felt pity and invited the woman to join them. The next morning, near the lake, everyone took time to wash and shave. They wanted to look clean so strangers would not mistake them for convicts or bandits. The woman introduced herself as Irina and soon grew closer to the group. Her friendly manner softened most hearts, though Smith stayed wary. To win their trust, Irina shared her past. She said Soviet soldiers killed her parents and that she survived by hiding in hay. Later she was captured and forced into labor. She spoke with tears in her eyes, but Smith doubted her story. Around Lake Baikal lay a small village. The group agreed to avoid it, fearing discovery, but Falca disagreed and slipped away. Janusz and the others worried he might lead danger back to them. He returned with blood on his clothes, raising alarm, but the blood came from a guard dog he had killed for meat. That evening Irina revealed more. Her parents had left Poland for the Soviet Union to join the communist movement. Officials accused them of spying and arrested them. She and her younger brother were sent to an orphanage where they were treated like animals. Her brother died there, prompting her escape. Lake Baikal stretched so wide that crossing around it took days. Swarms of mosquitoes attacked them, and they even asked local villagers how to endure the insects. Despite every challenge they pressed forward. More than a month passed. Until then Janusz's group had rarely spoken about their own pasts, but Irina's presence changed the mood. Even Smith, once hostile toward her, began to treat her like a daughter. 2 weeks later they reached the border. Guards patrolled during the day, so they waited for night to cross. Falca chose to remain inside Soviet territory. From the start he had fled only to escape gambling debts, seeking a different prison rather than freedom. Despite his motives he kept his word and protected Janusz to the border. Janusz and the others moved on, hoping to settle among the Mongolian people. Their plans changed when they found a building marked with the Communist Party emblem. Mongolia had allied with the Soviet Union and was no longer safe. At first they doubted the sign. Then they discovered an old temple filled with skulls, evidence of a massacre of monks. The site confirmed the alliance and ended any hope of refuge in Mongolia. They now faced a new decision. China lay nearest, but Japanese forces occupied it. Janusz proposed a different route, travel to India, a journey of about 3,500 miles across the Himalayas. Several days later they encountered local villagers. Smith feared capture, but Janusz urged calm and told everyone to act like ordinary travelers. The villagers were surprised to learn they aimed for Tibet on foot. One returned with a bag of water, an act of quiet kindness. The reason for the gift became clear beyond the next hill. An empty plain stretched to the horizon with no shade and relentless sun. Food was limited to desert lizards, and the water from the villagers was their only supply. Without a river they would face severe dehydration. Days passed with nothing but mirages. The shimmering illusions looked real, and Smith pushed to follow one. Janusz first doubted the distant shapes, then heard birds, a true sign of water. They soon reached an old well. Relief swept through the group. Some wanted to stay and wait for help, but Janusz insisted they keep moving. He knew stopping too long would only drain their strength. The next morning they filled every container and left the well soaked with water, hoping the damp clothes would help them endure the heat. Their supply lasted only a short time before a sandstorm struck. To many more miles, their condition worsened from thirst and severe malnutrition. Irina suffered the most. At first they thought she had fainted from exhaustion, but her swollen feet revealed sunstroke. When she woke, she tried to hide her weakness. By the next day, she could barely move. Foss carried her, hoping rest would help, but her breathing grew faint until she died. Smith grieved, but they had no time to stop. With water almost gone, they survived by sucking on wet cloth. Days of endless walking left their feet blistered and raw. Then Thomas, the cook who had kept them fed, collapsed and died. No one knew how long they had crossed the desert when they finally reached its edge. Smith, near collapse, begged Janusz to leave him to die, saying he was too old. Janusz refused and dragged him forward. The next morning they could hardly stand when a snake crossed their path. Where there was wildlife, there had to be water. Zoran followed the snake and found a spring. They drank deeply and hunted for food. Venomous snakes were everywhere, and eating them was risky, but hunger left no choice. That night Smith again urged Janusz to leave him. Janusz refused and revealed his reason for surviving. He wanted to return to his wife. Though she had once betrayed him, he believed she had been forced. He shared this to give Smith a reason to keep living. Inspired, Smith regained his will to continue. The hardest part of their journey was behind them. They reached Tibet and were welcomed by villagers. Winter had set in, and the elders advised waiting until spring before crossing to India. Janusz and his companions came from different nations. Smith, an American, chose this moment to part ways because a U.S. military base lay nearby. Ignoring the elders' advice, Janusz set out the next morning into the storm toward India. His two remaining companions followed. They climbed the Himalayas and crossed the border. In India they were warmly welcomed, even more than in Tibet. Janusz was honored as a hero. Decades passed before Poland broke free from communist rule. Only in 1989 did Janusz finally return home to reunite with his wife. So the moral of the story is never underestimate stubborn people with empty stomachs, because hunger plus sheer will can drag you across deserts, mountains, and even bad marriages.